Well, we downstreamed the boat. We're on the upper end of the tow now. Downstreamed on the center of 35. 7 wide and 5 long. It's a K-Road highway bridge down there. We're in the Ohio River. We headed south. Once we clear the K-Road highway bridge right there, K-Road Point, right over there, about a half a mile below it. By the Ohio River, down the lower Mississippi River. It's a 3-river junction. Ohio River, over here coming out at K-Road Point, the upper Mississippi River that runs up to St. Louis, all up in the Quad Cities, St. Paul, Minnesota, everything. These 3 rivers meet. It's called the junction, 3-river junction. Ohio River flowing south, upper Mississippi River on the other side of K-Road Point, going south into the lower Mississippi River, which then will go down to Memphis, Greenville, Mississippi, Pittsburgh, Mississippi, Natchez, Mississippi, Louisiana, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Gulf of Mexico. But they getting the boat faced up. There's the capstan line, holds us till we get our face rigging on. There's the capstan. Got it tight. They done put out the Kevlar on the starboard side. It's called facing the boat up, face rigging. Kevlars. They're real lightweight. Cuts down on them back injuries from pulling them wires. See, there's the wires, the face wires right there. For those little winches like Mr. Triffy is tightening right there. Helps keep the boat in here tight and stable. Keep you from steering the boat out of tow when you go around these sharp 90-degree switchback turns. You don't want the boat to steer out of tow, because it'd be like losing your tires or the back of your car going around a curve. Be crashing, tearing the world up. But there's Jay. He's fixing to pull that Kevlar out. They're real lightweight. 5-year-old kid can pull on them, no problem. Cuts down on them back injuries. Mr. Trippy tightening that wire. Look at him tightening that wire up. Got to put that cheetah pipe on there, bone it down tight. And then over time, as you steer on the boat, going down the river, they'll slack up. That's why they'll pull slack out of that drum on that winch. That's why when they go check tow every 6 hours, the front watch does it at 6 a.m. and then the back watch, which that's what we're on, they'll do it at 12 noon, and then again the front watch will do it at 6 p.m. when they come on watch. Always tighten the boat. Keep the boat tight. Tight boat don't come out of tow. But a loose boat, when that stuff ain't tight, every 6 hours from stretching, and they stretch over time steering on them with these old boats. They're powerful, got powerful rudders on them. And if you don't keep them tight, you'll steer a boat out of tow and break them Kevlars and things like pow, pow. And there you go. Then you don't have control of it. It's just like losing the tires off the front of your car. Or your steering wheel fall off or something. You can't steer around. Then you're gonna crash. Tear the world up. Talking about millions of dollars out here. Cargo, grain, soybeans, tank barge. That red flag liquid chemicals out there. That's the money barge right there. Big money in that barge. Jay, he's fixing to put that Kevlar on there. And then Mr. Trippy, he'll tighten her up. But getting it set up on all your fittings, around those buttons, roller chock. You gotta get her all set up to where they pull evenly in those winches right there, see? And they got that yellow stripe on that deck, because that's where, when they're tight, that's where that Kevlar line and wire run, and it keeps you from tripping over it, because it is up off the deck some, just like over here, see, on this starboard side. See how they got that tight, and you see how that line's on there on the deck, that yellow safety line.
Hey, you good with them horns like that?
Yeah. You see how that Kevlar is tight? It's got that yellow safety stripe on the deck. Well, that Kevlar is up off the deck about 5 inches or so, and that lets you know when you're walking over that stuff to step over it, because if you don't, you'll trip. Slips, trips, and falls. That's a lot of injuries out here on these old boats. But that's the safety measures to let you know that there is a line, a Kevlar or a face wire running up on that, across that deck there, elevated off the deck about 5 or 6 inches. And you don't catch your toe on it, trip, fall on your face, bust your head open, whatever. There's some boat rigging, hard rigging. They don't do much of that anymore. They got them little winches out there. See them winches? That cuts down on a lot of injuries too. Back injuries especially. Carrying that old heavy rigging. They don't want them injuries anymore. Costly and time saving. Also, it saves lots of time. They don't have to lug that rigging around. Causes injuries. Back, neck, legs, knees, whatever. For safety. All about the safety. Safety first. You see, you got to run that winch out, that Kevlar out, to get enough slack for it to reach out over there. So they got to go out over there. You got to have slack in that for it to reach. Mr. Trippy, he's hard at it. Boy's fit. We're fat on that boy. I say boy, he's a grown man, young man, hard worker. He takes pride in his work. Don't see that much out here anymore. He's the mate. We'll get her faced up. Once we get her faced up, everything good and tight, then they'll go out there at that steering coupling. That's the first coupling out from the boat. That's called the steering coupling. That's where you want to double everything up, hard down, tight, super tight, I'm talking about. Because that's where your toe is most limber when you're steering hard around these turns, these 90-degree turns and switchbacks, bridges and whatnot, steering up on them bridge piers. You don't want that steering coupling to come apart, because if it does, the rest of that toe's going down there and hitting stuff, tearing the world up. Millions of dollars of damage. Can't be doing that when it can be helped by getting that steering coupled good and tight, doubled up. And also your outside strings on the very outside, those are called the outside string, all down that, all the way to the head. Double them up out there on that outside. Doubled up on the head out there. Double rig winch wires. And this is the inside, or the port side string. We'll double that outside port string up all the way out to the head. Keeps it good, keep it good and tight. Lots of work for the deck crew, deck technicians. That's the new word for deck technicians.
I need the high end first.
Mr. Tripp's got that Kevlar, real lightweight. Those pink looking sleeves around those yellow Kevlars, those are called chafing gear. And what it does is you put the chafing gear around those fittings. See how it's around that fitting on that button right there? Then it keeps from wear and tear on the actual Kevlar, so they don't get frayed and wear, this, that, and another. Because when they start to fray and wear, well then they start to break. And you don't want that at all. And them things are very expensive. Very, very expensive to rig a boat out. See how it's got that chafing gear around that cable? It keeps that Kevlar right there from rubbing, wearing that Kevlar down, causing it to fray. The shaving gear keeps that from happening, see? That's what you call that, shaving gear. It's a protector for the actual Kevlar. Because boy, them things are really expensive. But they're lightweight for the deck technicians, where they're not straining their backs, legs, arms, shoulders, necks from them old steel wires. Old steel wires is hard on the deck crew. Safety first. That's what it's all about. Jay's getting her set up, lined up on all your deck fittings. He's gonna put in some slack around there, so see how he's pulling that slack around. And then shaving gear, keep that shaving gear around that cable, your deck fittings. Mr. Trippy's pulling it out, put it on that cable right there, see. Mr. J, he's pulling in some slack so he's not straining so hard to get that on that deck fitting. That's called a button right there. And that is a cable. That's called a D-ring right there. Mr. Trippy coming back. Get him some more. Mr. J, he's pulling that slack out, trying to get that where it's fouled in that drum right there. Pull it, get it all set up, pitch it over the side. Mr. Trippy's slacking that off where they can get that Kevlar where it's fouled and wrapped around that drum, and then the other part of the Kevlar's got it fouled down, so they got to pull that out, get that out, slack it off, pulling that in. See how he's pulling it out there? Keeps it from unfouling it. And that drum right there, see? Those wraps get on top of the other, and it fouls it down, we can't pull it out. So they have to unwind it in reverse, pull that slack out of there, see. Get that unfouled. So then they can pull them some more slack out to get out there, around that cable, right there. Pulling that slack out. Best to run out more than you actually need. So when you do get out there pulling on it to get it around that cable, you got extra slack, so you ain't got to come back and forth and back and forth pulling on it, slacking it off. That's a two-man job for sure. Lots of slack. Slack. See where that was fouled? It's already got a bad spot in that Kevlar right there. See it? Right there? That's a weak point. But it'll be wrapped back up in that drum down there, see? Maybe it won't break. But they can splice those back together once they break. It's kind of like braiding hair, the way those Kevlars are braided together. Kind of like braiding hair, like Jay's hair right there with them dreadlocks, see? Getting that slack up, pulling it around. Pull it around there, and you're gonna get it up here to trip him. But mate, he's waiting right there for that slack. Hand him up that bite. It's called a bite on that Kevlar. It's called a bite, and he's gonna pull it out there, put it around that cow. J-Mac, he's gonna throw that all over the side where it don't get tangled up. See, pitching it over. Get that slack over. And Mr. Tripper's pulling it up. Pulling that slack up. There's the slack. There's Mr. J. See, he's going to pull him some more slack out. So you got some slack right there if you need some more. Trippy's pulling that slack over there, see? There he goes. We're going to take it on out there. Mr. J's giving him some more slack on that drum for that winch. And then there he goes. Pulling that Kevlar on the shaving gear around the corners, around the edge of them barges right there, so it don't actually wear and tear on that Kevlar. That shaving gear will keep it from doing that. Mr. Tripp is getting tired. Tough job facing this boat up. Lots of rigging, lots of face rigging you got to get on here to keep this boat in tow. So they got so much horsepower and rudder power. There's some what's called boat rigging. Some of these barges, like them big barges, BIGs, they don't have those stationary winches on them. And they don't like them because they got to use that boat rigging. Ratchets, wires, straps. See, there's some right there on that barge. Right there. See, because they don't have any winches. Those have winches. See, portable winches. These don't have none, so they have to use that boat rigging, which is like there's your straps. There's one right. Let's see. There's some right there. See, straps right there around that cable. Then you hook that ratchet into it. Take that wire, wrap it around there, press that in. Then you yank it up, hook it in that chain link strap, tighten her up. There's ratchet right there. Just tight, 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 tight. There's Mr. Trippin putting this starboard wing wire on. It's called a wing wire. That's your long wire. He got her. He's doing it to it. He'll get that other bite, what's called the bite. And then he'll get that bite, that other bite, to the Kevlar, to the long wire, wing wire, two different words for it. I call them long wires. Some people call them wing wires. That's your longest wire out to your longest point of the width of the stern of the toe. See that one there? And then this one here is the face wire or Kevlar rigging. Mr. Trippy's over here waiting. Mr. J, he's pulling in some slack out of that winch to do the same thing over here on this side. But I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's a little long, but very informational on how you face up a boat, Mississippi River boat. And as always, when I finish out a video, I usually say, God bless America.